Hey, everybody. Good morning on a Monday. It is off day with Ballpark Nation. I want to send a real quick shout out to. We actually have some fans of our show, Andy, that are also Buffalo Bills fans.
Well, congrats to them.
Yeah, they had a night yesterday, didn't they? 3 touchdowns in what, 8 minutes or something like that, or 4 minutes? I don't know. But M Hatter 106. I don't know if he watches live or if he just follows up later on, or if he quit watching when we lost our third host. I don't know. But either way, congratulations to them. Andy, college football was played. You are not happy. Why? What about the Aggie win over Utah State does not have you a happy man this morning?
I mean, I'm not unhappy. It's just, and the branding covers up my really funny quote, but I'm in a state of ennui today about A&M football. It's just, we won 44-22 over Utah State. It was fine. But it was just more of the same, and nothing happened this weekend that makes me think that A, this team is ready to play Notre Dame in South Bend next Saturday, or B, that it's more than the 6-6 team that I thought they were before the season started. You would hope, and the stereotype is that you see the biggest jump from week 1 to week 2, so you can excuse a lot of things from week 1. But there's some things we did better. Yes, we ran the ball better against a worse defense. The game was never really in doubt, despite the fact that it was only a 22-point win. But it's just a lot of meh. And I don't have a better, I know people come for the hard-hitting analysis, but it's just more of the same. The defense doesn't look like it's going to be able to stop the run when it needs to. I'm not entirely sure that we'll be able to run the ball when we need to. The receivers still look good. Reed looks like he's taken a couple of steps from last year, and probably a couple of steps from week 1 to week 2. But just the team in general, I don't know if it's an inability to get up to play Utah State and whoever we played last week, but same UTSA. And they think they're going to turn it on in South Bend on the road, but it doesn't feel – nothing feels special about the season yet.
Is there any update on Reed's injury? He left the game. You thought
his dad says he's fine.
Oh, we need more dad injury reports.
Well, dad and Twitter is a good combination for getting information that you need to get. Elko doesn't have his press availability until this afternoon or lunchtime today, so I'm sure we'll get an update then. But according to Mr. Reed, Marcel is fine.
And so I think right now ESPN has Notre Dame as like a 5 or 6 point favorite. Does that feel right?
It opened at 6.5. It got down to 6 pretty quickly because A&M fans are A&M fans. We're going to try to bet. It would surprise me if Notre Dame doesn't cover at this point. It's going to be kind of a slog, I would guess. But nothing about what has happened so far in the season has me enthused about what's going to happen on Saturday.
Yeah. It looks like it's back up to 6.5. So, all right. Interesting. Well, I guess obviously too, it being a true road game and Notre Dame having had 2 weeks to prepare probably doesn't bode well for your confidence.
Well, and A&M broke the streak last year of some ridiculous number, like 4 years without a true road win. I mean, literally 4 years. They broke that streak against Florida last year, but they still weren't a great road team, and I don't see anything that's just making me think they're going to be dramatically better this year. So I am fully still in wait-and-see mode, but I have not been pleasantly surprised about a lot.
Man, so Texas A&M and University of South Florida have things in common.
Yeah.
That was a pretty dominating win, and it doesn't really show up in the scoreboard, but it felt like South Florida controlled that game, the vast majority of it.
I know that Billy Napier had a turnaround after kind of they played you guys, I guess, last year.
Mm-hmm.
They won a few of their last games, and it looked like they had righted the ship. And they've got DJ Lagway as their quarterback, so all's right in the world. But I really don't know how Napier still has a job.
Yeah, and that of course will be Texas's first big. Texas will be that'll be Texas's next big test. UTEP, the Miners notwithstanding, coming up this weekend. I think Texas is a 41.5 point favorite. But
I mean, the only reason UTEP is the worst of the UT system schools is because UT International doesn't have a football team.
Yeah, but what about UT Rio Grande Valley does now, baby?
What level are they? Tarleton State level?
I don't know, but the Vaqueros.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
Tarleton honestly, that's what the Houston Texans should have been if they had not been an unoriginal pile of crap when they named their team.
Yeah. I know that sometimes some people accuse Houston of wanting to be Dallas. We didn't have to be Dallas in that way.
I like that justification, though. Well, the Dallas Texans were a thing in the 60s before the Cowboys, so that's okay for us to do.
Yeah. And yet it wasn't. And yet you pissed away a perfectly good uniform design with a stupid name. I mean, I'll be honest. That's a top 5 helmet. The Texans helmet. That's a top 5 helmet. The name is.
And this is going to be the extent of our NFL talk, folks. We're not.
It's a fashion. It's the fashion. Hey, we've had Bills talk. We've had.
You got a little bit of Josh Allen talk. You got a little bit of fashion talk, and evidently somebody spit on Dak Prescott. That's about.
I don't know. Obviously, Arch Manning looked much better from our perspective, and I don't think. I saw a really good tweet from Robert Griffin III, who is no Longhorn lover, who said, his numbers were good against any opponent. That they I think he put up something like 5 touchdowns or 4 touchdowns in like 8 minutes or something stupid like that. So
it's 5 minutes. There's 5 minutes of actual gameplay.
Yeah, I know. At one point, it was 4 passes for 4 straight touchdowns. Some of them, what I was impressed by. Because we talked about this on the show Friday, it wasn't like they were wide receiver screens that got broken for big yardage. Yeah, the one play was 80 yards, but 40 of that was in the air. So it did look like he threw the ball well. It also looked like, and I think, I understand the hesitancy to really want him to run, but I think he thrives on running and getting hit because he pops back up and he's got energy. And he was fired up after his touchdown run. And I think, to quote Leo from the West Wing, you just got to let Bartlett be Bartlett or maybe let Manning be Manning. This Manning. Don't make him be the other Manning. Maybe that's the problem with Sark is he forgot which Manning he has.
Sark can do no wrong when you guys win. Arch has his own skill set, and, he is, as they keep mentioning on the TV broadcast, the son of Cooper, not Eli or Peyton.
Actually, they also keep mentioning
and he gets all his athleticism from his mom.
From his mother. My wife, Jess, was in the kitchen about the 3rd time she said, good God, it's the roommate thing all over again.
Oh, you're going to hear that literally every week because you've got to be able to explain why Arch can run and nobody else in his immediate family seems to be able to.
Yeah. I think Texas.
I think it was a good next step for Arch. He obviously had a disappointing season opener in a lot of different respects, and I think a lot of that was on him. I still think there is an ungodly amount of pressure on his shoulders that isn't exactly fair at this point in his career. That the national media, the fan base, a lot of people have put on him, but that's part of the gig, I guess, when you sign that NLI with the University of Texas. And your last name happens to be Manning.
Yeah.
Having said that, I think there were still some gaps that prior to those 4 touchdowns and 4 passes that there were some questions about what he was doing and what he was seeing and why he wasn't seeing things fast enough.
Yeah.
Things seemed to click, and then there was a whole lot of nothing for a period of game after those 4 touchdowns.
No, totally. Yeah, he needs to You
So it
cannot have.
becomes now a consistency thing. How do you get more of that 5 minutes and less of the other 20 minutes that he played?
Yeah, because he kept kind of checking. I wouldn't say he checked out. The offense lost energy.
Sure.
That's the best way to put it. They checked out that game easily. Well, I mean, to the point that you and I were texting, and Arch played 3 quarters. To me, that's 1 quarter too long. He should have only had to play 2. But when you are inconsistent, you have to play 3.
Yeah, and that's the rub, right? He's only going to get better with reps. So as much as you'd like to, and next year, if you're still having the same conversation that the games are close enough and he's inconsistent enough that he has to play the third quarter of what's basically an exhibition game, I think then there's some more questions. But I think those questions start coming down to Sark, because this is, from my vantage point, the second all-world quarterback in a row that you guys have had that seem to get off to slow starts in games. And so at some point, it's not the talent at quarterback, it's the play calling and game planning. Because those first, 15 plays are scripted?
Yes.
By and large. So if your quarterbacks are consistently getting off to slow starts in games, is the game plan right? Is Sark seeing the right things that he needs to see? Is he just fine with a slow start because he's setting his team up to get better as the game goes on, or setting up the other team to see things that aren't going to be there later? I don't know, but it's an interesting question, because it's fine to have a slow start against the teams that you guys have played so far.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes less fine when you go to the Swamp, when you play Alabama, when you play Georgia, and whoever else is on your schedule this year. I haven't looked. I know it's the same schedule as last year. Anyway, it's just that to take that next step, that's going to be something I think the team has to kind of look, and I think Sark has to kind of look at himself and is seeing, do I have tendencies that need to be changed a little bit?
Well, I think
you again put Arch Manning in the offense in the best position to win the games, because your defense is going to keep you, from what I've seen so far, the defense is going to keep you guys in all your games.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think, I hate to repeat things that are easy to be said by idiots on Twitter. So that's usually
welcome.
one of my filters. But I do wonder if, we've talked about this before offline, is the job of being the head football coach at the University of Texas too big to also be the play caller? And part of me wonders if game planning and everything else is great, but I wonder if sometimes in the moment, I don't know how it's something just like, to your point, kind of feels off. And it feels like that's the reason why the offense has been slow, not just because Arch Manning's not apparently getting his feet in the right position when he throws.
Yeah. I mean, you would like to think, is Sark also more or less, I know you probably have a guy in the position, but the quarterback coach?
Yes, I believe so.
So that becomes a problem, and I'm not comparing Sark to Jimbo Fisher. So please, Longhorn fans, I don't need the hate mail. But it becomes an issue of, I don't know that you can objectively manage the things like the mechanics of a quarterback's throwing and his footwork, and also worry about scheming, game planning, and calling the game simultaneously. Because I think those are different areas of focus, right? So Arch's footwork and mechanics and all the things that make him, beyond his natural talent, a superior athlete at that position have to be refined. And I think you need somebody full-time staring at those refinements and paying attention to those things. I think that's almost counterintuitive to also calling plays.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if you want to be the head coach and the quarterback coach, I think those things line up a little bit more, because the things you're talking about doing for a quarterback would be more during the week and the game happens then. But during the week, the offensive coordinator should be coming up with the game plan. They should be picking out sets of plays that are going to work best against the opponent and picking them out film. And I just don't know that it makes the most sense at this level of program for one guy to have that many keys to the kingdom.
Yeah, I completely. You've articulated what I 100% agree with you. And what I don't want to see happening is wasted opportunities because we see the pattern of it a lot, where those changes aren't made until it feels like, oh, you've entered the world of hot seat. And so now you will make the change because that's the next stage before the university. And I'm not suggesting at all that Sark needs to be anywhere near the hot seat.
No.
At all. I mean, I think that you gave Mac Brown 10 years to win something. I would think that Sark deserves at least that. And I would say that 10 years starts last year when you joined the SEC. So I'm not saying that at all. It does seem like it's hard to be this innovative play caller when you're also worrying about everything else.
I mean, and I think that's the other part of it. The everything else is a big job at a D1 school that is in the stratosphere that Texas is, that A&M is to some extent. And I'm not talking about wins and losses. So again, calm yourselves.
No, but it's a big.
There's a certain tier of football program that the head coach job is a bigger job than at other tiers of a football program. And I'll pick on Baylor. I don't think it's as hard to be Dave Aranda at Baylor as it is to be Sark at the University of Texas.
No, I don't think people fully understand, and I don't even know that this is the same as it is at Texas and at A&M versus, say, at Ohio State, where I don't think people fully understand the buy-in that these two programs get, to the point that the minute they smell any kind of success, you've got a zillion people wanting to, like, just the managing of all of it around it.
Yeah.
It's a whole skill set in and of itself. And Charlie Strong, big swing and miss was, I don't care about that stuff. I'm just going to worry about football. We can't do that.
Well, and Sark doesn't even have he doesn't even have the responsibility of putting on a cooking show or a pet show or a fashion show, whatever the things he would have had to do with the Longhorn Network as part of his contract.
Yeah.
So they've at least taken that away from him.
They have. I will say, though, we've done a really good job of avoiding our baseball team for 17 and a half minutes.
Well, our baseball team has done a really good job of avoiding playing baseball for 3 games, and really since the All-Star break, and really since July 1st. So, hey.
Yeah. What a lackluster showing in Dallas, and yesterday had the full Astros experience in one game, beyond the ridiculous Yandy Diaz 2-base error on a strike 3 call that led to a run scoring, which I'm not sure I've ever seen that in my life, to I think 9 or 10 balls hit at over 100 miles an hour that were all outs. Like, just one of those things. But as no matter, as we wake up, the Astros have a 2.5 game lead in the division. They have a 65% chance of winning the division according to Fangraphs, and they have a combined winning percentage of teams left of 490. But that doesn't matter because it doesn't seem to matter right now. It just feels weird and off.
Yeah, and I was fairly excited Saturday when I saw the lineup, and the game went our way Saturday. With Jake Myers back in the lineup, it's a really long lineup on paper. I mean, when you're batting Walker, I think he batted 6th or 7th, and Diaz batted behind him. That should be a lineup that scores runs with the names and the back of the baseball cards that those guys have, but for whatever reason, they just can't hit as a team. And I don't know if it is the easy answer of Citron and Stichter need to be elsewhere next season. I don't know if it's just an incredible string of bad luck, or if, more largely this team is just constructed really poorly. I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle of all those things, but this is not a slump. This is a prolonged, now almost 3-month stretch of just not being able to put a stretch of good baseball together. And it's disheartening. I still think this team makes the playoffs. I still think they probably win the division, but I don't know that it matters because I think they're out in 2 games in a wild card scenario.
Yeah. And it's funny because,
and that's better than the alternative. I guess I'll say that. That's better than not making the playoffs.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And this is one of those situations where, we talk about, does the division championship matter? I mean, to me, if you're going to lose in the first round of the playoffs. I'd rather win the division so we can at least have something to point to for the year, as opposed to, oh, we made the wild card and lost. What a waste of a year. I know that might be asked backwards to some people, but it's funny because the thing had been we got to wait for Myers to come back, wait for Alvarez to come back, and they have both hit. Like Myers had a hit in both games, and Alvarez has clearly been doing ungodly things, and it hasn't mattered at all. One iota.
No, and I think some of that is some of it's on Espada. I don't know that he's putting the best lineup that he can out there every game. I do understand, and we talked about this last time about the reason why you bat Alvarez second, but I don't think the way this team is playing right now it makes any sense to have him at second.
Not with Altuve being just the hole he is right now.
Well, and Correa's not much better. I mean, they're both. Correa's certainly better than Altuve has been because Altuve's on one of his godly cold streaks.
8 for his last 70.
Yeah. The thing about Altuve is he could wake up tomorrow and have a 3-hit game, and
Definitely.
All's going to be right in the world. And usually you can watch him and see when it's coming. I haven't seen that yet, but
he hit the ball hard yesterday. He had 2 really hard hit balls. So whatever.
And this team makes no sense, so it absolutely could go into Toronto and win 2 of 3, or it could get swept. I mean, there's any variety. But beyond this season, even, and I know it's a little premature to talk that, the Astros have a lot of things they need to figure out about who needs to be on this roster, what position they need to be playing. We've talked about the glut of third baseman we're going to have when Paredes comes back. I think they've got a giant issue at catcher that we've talked about. I think the rotation is a giant question mark, and that's with the anticipated loss of Framber Valdez, which I think, honestly, from a chemistry standpoint, is going to be addition. And I know, but nobody wants to hear that because his numbers still look okay. That mess yesterday was still a quality start, by the way.
Yeah, and
because that's the thing we care about.
That's the thing that is really and I called a bunch of people. Oh boy, there's some guy named the Fourth Coug doesn't like me. Oh, let's see. Oh, and he follows me too. That's weird. This guy wanted to trade Valdez, and I pointed out to him at the Fourth Coug, idiot, that the trade deadline is over. He's a free agent after the year, and you're an idiot, is what I told him. And he said, well, to go fuck myself. So I'm going to ask him live on air, then why do you want to trade him? Anyway.
Also, how? How are you?
And how? But then that's the thing. But
I guess that's better than DFA because that's usually the refuge, right? Yeah. Just DFA him.
Just DFA him.
That'll show him.
So my whole thing is the infighting is so bad that all of these people are like, I cannot believe you're blaming Valdez for the loss yesterday. I don't think a single person is, but I think but you cannot look at the last 6 weeks. Valdez has not only been ineffective, he's actually been, I think, a drain on the team. Just because he pitched kind of okay yesterday, which, by the way, is way lower than his normal standards.
Well, I mean, the first run wasn't on him. Like we mentioned, that's on Yiner making baseball history. So congrats, I guess, to the Diaz family. Because that first run, that's not it. Framber did everything Framber needed to do. But he melted down in the 6th, had way too many hard hits right in a row. It resulted in Jake Berger becoming an all-star because evidently he's going to be our new Fernando Vina, the guy who hits against no one and decides to just own the Astros. Chris Davis, I think, is another one of those. I think we could all list the Astros foes that we think are like that. Espada didn't seem to want to go do anything about it. And I would think with Framber's recent history, after those 2 first hard hits, maybe go talk to him. Maybe send out one of your 2 pitching coaches to go have a word. Maybe send out Cesar Salazar to spit on him. I don't know, something. But it's like everybody's afraid to manage Framber. I don't think the blow up last week was necessarily a new thing. I think, yes, hitting your catcher on purpose, whether or not that happened, but whatever you want to believe, that's not a normal thing, and that hasn't happened a lot in the past. But I think there have been a lot of things like that Framber is in the middle of that get glossed over because his performance has been above average for most of his time with the Astros. And I think now that he's not as much a above average pitcher, it gets tolerated less, and I think it becomes divisive in the clubhouse. And in baseball, where chemistry is just as important as the numbers, I think he's a drain on the clubhouse. I think he's a drain of resources. I think that it is. I am sure the players, like most of the fan base, watch a Framber start and go, "When is it going to happen?" And by it, I'm not meaning something good. I mean the Framber inning, where he just blows up and everything goes bad.
My thing is, we say all the time that the one thing about a manager is managing the clubhouse, and I don't think he's doing it. And you and I don't like to play the sources game, and we don't like to play that we can hear things, but we do hear things every now and again. And this your hypothesis that this has been a recurring problem and an issue with Framber is correct based on things that we've heard. And there is for this team to be as inconsistent and as lifeless as it seems to be. We can only say seems. We're not psychologists, and we cannot diagnose somebody through a screen. But compared to what the talent is on the team, something has to be wrong that we're not seeing, and that thing is probably in the clubhouse.
Yeah, and I think that's as much crap as this fan base gave Dusty Baker on his way out the door. The rap on Dusty when he became the Astros manager is he's going to win a lot of regular season games, but then he's going to choke when it's important in the playoffs. And he finally had the talent to outlive some of those tendencies. But that thing about winning regular season games is still a real thing. And I don't know. And from that perspective, we've taken a downgrade in manager. And I like Joe Espada. I think given enough time, he's going to be a perfectly good manager. But I think he is learning on the fly. I think the Astros did him no favors by letting him, by A, keeping all of Dusty's old coaches, and then B, not putting a really experienced, maybe even former manager as his bench coach for somebody to be a sounding board for him. And we've seen it in a year. His first year was horrendous for the first 2 months of the season before they figured things out. This year, they've been fighting a lot of injuries. And these are things that experienced managers know how to deal with and know how to manage through, the good ones at least. And I think Espada is feeling his way through. I think he really wants to be a let the guys play manager. And I don't know that this team has warranted that level of trust right now. Well, and so he needs to be more hands-on. He needs to be dealing with, if there are cancers in the clubhouse, dealing with that and letting them know that in no uncertain terms, we don't need you as much as you need us, regardless of who you're talking about. And I just don't know that he has the gravitas to do that. He doesn't have the experience to do that. I don't know if he has the personality to do it. So I think that that's one of the issues that Jim Crane and Dana Brown are going to have to decide about is if we think the talent level is right and we think the guys are right, then it's something else. And if that's Cintron and Snichter, okay. But I think it might run a little bit deeper than that.
My thing is kind of where I'm at on that is that, look, you brought up the injuries. The Astros actually were playing better with the injuries. And I wonder if it's because they're playing unproven guys and Joe felt like he could – I don't know the solution. But the Astros have gotten worse as the veterans have come back. And that's weird to me. And I think you're right. I think eventually he'll be a really good manager, but the Astros are not the team for on-the-job training. Like they are in too precarious a situation, but on like this is a couple of different turnout or result changes that have us feeling completely different about this team. Maybe could be a contender for the number 1 seed and win the World Series. Like, that's how precarious things are. And it seems like we've talked about this before, where now Joe just feels like sometimes he's making in-game decisions because he believes those are things he's supposed to do, whether he really believes them or not. Like the over managing of the lefty righty thing, and then going to a guy who's hitting. Like, you should never ever pinch anybody for Jacob Melton, but it's happened because it's like his mind's telling him, I have to do something. It's
Yeah,
been weird.
It is one of the most bizarre things I've seen from a contending team, and I know it's a minor, small thing in the grand scheme of things. The wholesale outfield change that happens almost every game now with defensive substitutions and pinch hits, and they're all back to back to back because he's trying to manage by action, I guess. Just, I'm going to do something and hope that this is the thing that works, and it's never worked. I haven't seen one time where you've gotten, all right, well, we're going to pinch hit Trammell, and we're going to pitch hit Cooper Hummel, and we're going to pinch hit and take out Jake Myers and do this because this is lefty on righty, and we've got it. It's never worked out. If you're going to be a guy that lets your players play, then let them play, and recognize that you have some guys on your team that are better than other guys, and some guys that are there only because you've had a horrendous amount of injuries, and they shouldn't be on a major league roster. And I'm not picking on Jacob Melton. I think it was way premature for him to be pulled up. But since you brought him up, there's never a situation where he should be pinch hitting for anybody. There's no matchup that favors him. None.
He's not even a very good pinch runner.
I mean, yeah. And it's the frustration I think people are hearing in both of our voices is the frustration everybody has watching this team now. It's not enjoyable. It's more of relief that they didn't screw something up when they win, and then an expectation that something's going to go bad when they lose that's just fulfilled, and that's different than it's been for the last 9 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point. It really is relief. This has not been very fun it's you dread almost putting a game on because you have no idea what's going to happen. You have no idea. Like, the Astros literally scored 3 runs against Jacob deGrom and then scored 2 runs against the rest of those guys yesterday. Like, what? It just, there's no logic to what's going to happen. And I don't know. I believe if the Astros don't win the division, and I'm of the opinion they don't win the division, it should cost Espada his job. And the hitting coach is their job. And I don't think that they're bad coaches, and I don't think that they're a bad manager, but it seems like maybe a different voice is needed. We talked a little bit about that in the football thing, about how sometimes it's just, Snichter and Cintron have been, right, since 2018, they've been the hitting coaches.
Yep.
That's a long time. At some point, your message gets stale. Whether it's the right message or not is immaterial. Sometimes you need a different person to deliver that message. And so that's where I'm at. I think – I have a feeling Crane will do stuff like that. I have a feeling. I don't know that even Dana Brown's job will be safe because Jim Crane, I think, 2 things. One, knows that this team is way more valuable for him when it's winning. And we've already talked about the fact that he has got real estate designs on the area around the ballpark that are much bigger than just baseball. And that stuff falls apart real quick if your team isn't winning.
Yeah. I think Brown is probably on a little bit safer ground if I'm just looking at this logically, and believe me, logic has very little to do with the hiring and firing of front office personnel. I'm fully aware of that. Only from the standpoint that last summer, Dana Brown took control of the day-to-day operations of the team for real. I know he had the title longer than that, but Reggie Jackson isn't with the organization because Reggie Jackson was no longer making recommendations on personnel. Jeff Bagwell, as much as people want to hate his front office escapades, has not been making front office recommendations or even been asked his opinion on things in a while because Dana Brown was given those reins. So I don't know that anybody could plan for the amount of injuries. If I think Jim Crane is going to hold something against Dana Brown, it's the inability to get Dylan Cease at the trade deadline, even if that was the right call, because that's the kind of thing I think Jim Crane would be like, I want that frontline guy.
Well, let me ask you this. Why is James Click not here anymore?
James Click is not here, not because of anything other than he defied a director, basically defied Jim Crane directly, and then was told, okay,
That's my point.
You're staking your career on this move.
So for all we know, Dylan Cease is that same situation, because we know that Jim Crane had told he wanted the center fielder and didn't get one. And then all of a sudden you don't have James Click anymore. So it makes you wonder because the other thing too is, and it worked, like that's the problem, is it worked out Correa over getting Arenado, but they swung and they muffed the Arenado trade in the offseason by leaking the Tucker trade first. That's what caused Arenado to deny the to not waive the no trade clause. And I understand that it worked out better for the Astros in the end, but it still doesn't show you anything but incompetence in how you got your job done. Just because it accidentally works out doesn't make it mean that the process was good.
Yeah. Like I said, I think there's a lot of things that are going to have to happen in the offseason. I do think your point about different voices is valid. And, it was making me think that at some point we've accepted that Jose Altuve is probably going to be a Hall of Famer. I think it's a really good chance for everybody, except for the most rabid of Yankees and Dodgers fans who think that he should be crucified, understand that he's going to be that guy 5 years after he retires. But I think you have to have somebody in the clubhouse who is willing to tell him, you have to stop doing this thing that you're doing, whatever it is. You have to look at your mechanics about this thing, because I think he's become a little bit of a sacred cow that you don't have a conversation with about his hitting, because he'll figure it out, because he always has. I think a new set of eyes, a new voice would go a long way towards repairing some of that. Because as you mentioned, we hit Jacob deGrom really well for a start against Jacob deGrom. You got 3 runs off of him. That's this season. That's practically unheard of. And then you proceed to let Patrick Corbin no-hit you for 5 innings. And you could chalk that up to saying, well, every pitcher has a game, blah, blah, blah.
Corbin's not a bad pitcher historically. He's had a bad game.
We have been no-hit deep into games dozens of times this year.
Dozens of times. Against nobodies. We were perfect. The Baltimore game.
Yeah, that ultimately is approach, and that's a team-wide approach.
Yeah, so I saw somebody make a joke on Twitter the other day that it was like, and it was like, all right, here comes Altuve, and all of a sudden we're in a 0-2 count. And that's how it's been, for everybody. And it does, like, a fresh voice is a good thing. And I don't think, again, I don't think you can look game to game and say, oh, they lost because the hitting coach sucked in that game. But you can take a step back at a season and say, okay, well, they said they were going to fix the approach in this way and that way. And sure, Paredes got hurt. But I was assuming fixing the approach wasn't just bringing new guys in. It was also coaching the guys you have to have a different approach.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
that was the justification for bringing in Paredes, or acquiring Paredes, bringing in Walker, because both those guys see a lot of pitches. Paredes did that until he got hurt. Walker has actually regressed in that way, because I think he's pressing just like the rest of the team is pressing, because they're all trying to hit 5-run home runs every time they're at bat. And again, that's the manager. That's the coaching staff. You've got to start dealing with these personalities, and I don't know what the answers are, but what they're doing right now isn't working.
Well, and I'll challenge Correa, because Correa said something about, like, and again, I like, you and I are really good, I think, about being humble enough to know that we don't know, right? All we can do is say what we think as fans. We're not going to talk up here like we think we know more than Cintron or Snick or any of those guys. But Correa said you can't change the approach because aggressive hitters need to be aggressive. Well, you're not the same guy you were 10 years ago. Like, at some point, you also have to evolve, because pitchers know I'll just throw you. I mean, how many times we saw Correa strike out so many times in this slump, swinging at balls in the other batter's box. Like, you also have to adapt and change your approach as you get older, and realize that in some cases your skill sets are diminishing. Altuve's not the same guy as he was in 2013 or 2015 or 2017.
Yeah, and I'll be happy to see, Correa have a full season here in Houston next year, but I will also be sad that I know that I'm going to be watching the Correa called third strike more often than not, because that's something that's been part of his career, his entire career. You talk about adjustments. There's one that hasn't been made, and I think at some point you're a player at such a level, such a stature, that nobody's willing to call you on stuff. That doesn't excuse, why you allow Yainer Diaz to swing wildly at things that no human being can hit.
Well, look, Altuve can be coached. Correa can be coached. Yainer Diaz can't be coached, because that's been his problem for 3 consistent years, and it hasn't changed. And so I think you talk about decisions that'll have to be made. I think you do have to move away from Yainer Diaz as your catcher. You get what you can for him on the trade. Somebody will trade you something for him. And I think it also might mean trading Walker and moving Paredes to first base. Like,
he is, he's in that territory for me of Jeremy Robertson. Jeremy Robertson was a forgettable pitcher, but he managed to win 18 games one year for the Astros, and he was immediately traded. And so I think what you're going to see is the marketing of 20 home run hitter Yainer Diaz, not horrible catcher and positionless player Yainer Diaz, because that's how Dana Brown is, or whoever's the general manager, is going to have to sell him on that, because it's not like other teams don't know that he's a man without a place to play.
Yeah.
But then that opens up a whole new world of questions, because the Astros, if that move was to happen, Cesar Salazar is your starting catcher based on who's in the organization right now. Which I wouldn't have a problem with necessarily, but even he can't catch every day.
No. I mean, I think you have to re-sign Carantini.
I mean, that's the hope, but it's a series of moves.
It's a series of moves, but I would rather have look, the problem with Yainer Diaz is he's not good at any of it. If he was a consistent offensive presence and couldn't catch, then that's fine. Then you live with shit like yesterday, because he's going to hit consistently. But he's not doing that. So I would much rather have a good catcher that can manage a pitching staff, that doesn't let balls go through his legs like it's nobody's business, and then occasionally runs into one. I mean, than what we have now. So I would much rather that than – I'd much rather have Maldonado in 2023 than I would rather have Yainer Diaz today.
I am of a certain age, but I was never unhappy when Brad Ausmus was our catcher with that position.
Plus, he was handsome.
Well, I mean, he had a fantastic ass. So if you brought a date to the ballpark, you had that to talk about. But no, never had an issue with the catching position, even though you knew you weren't going to get diddly squat offensively out of it, because everything else that position requires was handled. Yeah. And handled well. Maldonado gave you some of that. Yainer Diaz gives you none of that.
He gives you nothing. Although I guess what he does give you is a physical presence, because there's no way that Framber would have thrown a ball into his chest, because I think Yainer might have broken him in half. So there's that.
I'll tell you what he gives you. He gives you 15 to 20 minutes to fill the show with every week. So that's, he does. We appreciate him for that.
All right. So we do actually need to go, but real quick, look, we both saw The Conjuring. I'm a big fan of that franchise. I think it's the most solid horror franchise, top to bottom, maybe outside of Scream, as far as none of the movies are terrible. They're all at least pretty good. Overall, what were your impressions?
I liked it. I think it was a nice wrap up to the series, if that's truly what they're going to do. I know that's the word, but money talks, and they made a lot of it. Well, they made a lot of it. And they also left it in a certain way that you could have a next generation doing things if you wanted to. I don't think that's where they're going to go, but certainly could be a thing. You added a pretty dynamic actor as the son-in-law that had a kind of a bit role in the movie. But no, I think it was a good telling of the Schurz case. Schurz, I think is how you said the last name of the family. Mm-hmm. I think that Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga, I can never say her name right, are incredible in the roles. If you are into horror and you need some sort of universe to live in, this is as good as any that's been put out. But I think it was a nice wrap up to the franchise.
Yeah, and I think what you're going to see with the plans right now is you'll see more movies that are offshoots of that franchise. I know there's another Annabelle movie in development and probably another movie in the Nun series, but they are saying that the Warrens are done, retired.
Well,
Finished.
and yeah, and
and it was good.
That's probably right. Because I think they've covered all their famous ones besides Amityville, which they can't really get into. Although they did in the closing credits scene give a nod.
They walked a little closer to that copyright line than they had before.
Yeah, and if you like fan service, there were a lot of people from the first 6 movies that made appearances, mostly at the wedding.
I was missing Peterman though. Hey, Peterman.
I assume he died.
I assume he did something. Yeah. All right. Well, that'll be it for us until Friday, Andy. Hopefully, we'll have a bigger thing. I think also too, the Mariners are going to be playing a pretty hot Cardinals team. They've won 7 of the last 10, and for as much as we look at the standings, and the Cardinals are 18 games behind the Brewers, they would be 3 games behind the Astros if they were in the division. So.
Well, it's a division. The AL West is a division nobody wants to win. So, I mean, that would make sense.
Yeah. Again, Fangraphs has you at a thick 65% chance of winning the division. So until next time, I'm Jim Christopher, Sandy Tom Chesson, gig 'em, hook 'em, and go Stros. We will be back on Friday.